Hello and welcome back to the workshop. So we're back on with gearboxes, but a much briefer look this time. I've got two things I want to do. One is to do an autopsy on this gearbox, the one that I've just taken out of Kermit, the one with multiple problems. And secondly, to build up this one. And this is going to be a refresh more than a rebuild. So it's going to have the same gears going back into it, but new bearings, new seals, all that sort of thing. I also need this bell housing to build up the other box. Well, the first thing I noticed about this box is it's covered in oil. There was plenty of oil underneath the vehicle, all along the bottom of it. And it's evident it's been leaking from here, which is kind of inevitable with these gearboxes. They all leak from the selector seals. So on a long run, you get little dribbles of oil coming out of here and then runs down there and off the bottom. But we've also got loads of oil in here. And there was so much oil in here, I was concerned it was coming from the engine, but when I took this off, thankfully, the engine side of it was dry. This oil is coming from here, from this cover. So something's gone wrong there. Or possibly it's the oil seal that's inside here, and then the oil could come out down there. So let's dig into it. Once again, it's an opportunity to use my selection of Whitworth sockets and my one and only Whitworth spanner, which I inherited from my granddad. I'll take the selectors off next, and then we can pull out the gears and have a look at those. Retrieving the balls and the detents. This is the third and fourth selector here. There we go. Reverse. They're all in good nick. Now we can see the state of the gears. This here is the synchro. I thought there'd be a broken spring on there, but there are no springs on there, so that's amazing that worked at all. So if you've seen the video where I did the rebuild, there's supposed to be a leaf spring between each of these three rods here. There's nothing. That is amazing that did anything. So by rights, this gearbox shouldn't have been working. And that's been clonking about in there. Yeah, that's just horrible. In addition, the edges here are razor sharp. The edges of these gears. This is scrap. So, as expected then, the synchro is, is a goner. Let's get in a little bit more. Well, it's just falling out of the bearings. There's nothing holding it there at all. Right, interestingly, the bronze bush that normally breaks is intact, as far as I can tell. Third gear here, it feels rough, which is interesting. And this one here, the edges of the teeth are rough. This bulk ring here has got lots of damage on the teeth. I'm going to get the first and second synchro out and have a look at that. So I'm not sure how well you can make that out, but it's apparent to me that it's been sat in water at some point in its life. There's corrosion here and here, which is interesting. Even though it's been running, it's been well used for a couple of years now, it hasn't taken off that that rust. So this here, the straight cut one, that's reverse. That's in bad shape. And this one here isn't much better. So where the corrosion is, it feels rough to touch. So this is the lay shaft, and there's a bit of corrosion on here, but not as much as you'd expect, because obviously this is at the bottom of the box. You'd think it would be sat in the if there was water in there, it'd be sat in it, but it doesn't look too bad. There's a lot of wear on. This is reverse again, and there's a lot of, you can see in it just there. There's a lot of damage. So the first second synchro has a nice action to it. But this is rough around here. That side's alright. Here's another failure. See, this bearing housing can rotate inside the casing. And that's one way that oil can migrate from the gearbox into the transfer box. That shouldn't be able to do that. That should be glued in place. So the main shaft here might be serviceable. There's no visible damage to it, but that's about it. All of these gears are scrap. There's a few things that are usable. The bell housing, which I'm going to use in the rebuild for this. The selectors look fine, as does the selector casing. The gearbox casing itself, that's fine, that's usable. I use this cover on the bell housing. I'll go again. But all these gears, they're all scrap. And that, the synchro, I'm amazed I was getting any service out of this at all. State of that. Right, I'm going to have a tidy up and get rid of all the bits that are no good. Then we'll clean the bell housing and get on with putting this one together. Right then, all cleaned up, ready to start the reassembly. So we've got the original main casing, the new bell housing, this is the main shaft, the lay shaft, this is all the other bits that came out of the gearbox, which will mostly be cleaned up and go straight back in. And in this box, got all the consumables. So we've got oil seals, loads of shims and washers for setting the clearances, bearings. And we'll start with bearings, I think. So I'll get this out of the way. Pinion next. Now this is our first chance to play around with different size washers. The clip on. There, I've just put the clip in and I should be able to just move the washer without any real wiggle to it. So I think that's probably the right size. But we'll try one of the others. 1.9. That's fractionally bigger than that one. That's smaller. We'll try this one. Okay. So you can see the clip there, and I can just move the washer fractionally snugger than the last one, but I can still move it, so that's good. This bearing next. Now last time I pressed it in using the fly press, but looking back at the footage, it did make the back of the bell housing here flex quite alarmingly. So this time around, I'm going to put it in this way. Yeah. Just pushed in there. Excellent. That's the power of heat. Easy peasy. So that's both the bearings and the bell housing. Now we can move on to the main case. And there's bearings to go in here. This one next. Yep. So I'm going to let that go off for a bit. And I'll do something else instead. While I wait for that glue to set, we can do synchro. None of these springs are broken in this one, but I'm going to replace them anyway because they do wear out. See the shiny bit in the middle of the spring? That is quite worn, so it's a good precaution to change them all. I've got OEM replacement springs, and I bought a whole load of them. They're getting hard to find. And it's the right way around, that way. Easy peasy. Next up, I'm going to sort out the rest of the main shaft. So I'm hoping we're within spec and I don't have to do too much messing about. Right, so 0.1 to 0.18. So this bit here in the middle, this is a part of the bronze bush, and it's the clearance above and below that I'm looking for. So you can see that gear moves up and down. That gap there, so if I pull down on this gear, I can just about, I managed it just a minute. Yeah, I can just get this feeler gauge in, which is the minimum, that's 0.1. That gap there, so that's fine. Both those gaps are within spec. That way up. Right, so it's that way up. Cleaning oil in all of it. So there should be a gap between the top of these splines and this bush. So to measure that, we do that. So this isn't quite in spec. So I'm going to sand this down just a tiny bit. When the bush and the washer is on there, I need to get in a feeler gauge that's 0.05 millimeters. So I'm sanding it on the diamond block again, like I did last time with the bronze bush. The other bronze bush. There we go. Yeah, got that. Good. And final check. Yeah, brilliant. That's that. Right, and we're nearly on to setting the lay shaft, but first this compound should have gone off now. So we can fit this clip. And 30, 28. So that's the thickest to the finish. Right, so as with last time, I'm going to put the thickest spacer on first, which I expect to be too thick. There should be a tiny bit of end float you should be able to feel. I can't feel any. So I'm going to go down a size. Yeah, we'll go with that one. Now we can begin actual assembly. Now this is just a case of a lot of fiddly faffly fiddle. Right, so that's got to come through into the bearing. Yeah, so I just got to... That's it, we're in. Gasket on. Right, leave that loose from there. So and I'll put that in for. So they will line up across here now, so that will gives that movement of the gear stick will be nice and smooth. Much of this gearbox rebuilding, it's just a case of fiddling about until it feels right, and then going with that. Which makes it more of an art than a science, I guess. So now with the selectors in there, we can select 2 gears at once, which will lock up the box. And then we can tighten up this end and this end, the lay shaft bolt, and this nut here. Reverse, which is there. There. That's reverse and fourth together, which means we're locked. very much on the home straight, just this top section to go. But before I sort this out, I'm going to put the drain plug back in and pour a litre of oil in the top while we've got good access. This gearbox is going to be in storage, hopefully forever. So I figured by putting some oil in it, spinning it around a bit, and then I'll roll it around. I should be able to just flood everything with oil. Heftier spring. Yeah, that's fourth, third, second, first. Let's keep this there. Reverse. So I turn this way, that goes that way. But there we go. Now I can go and put this in storage and hopefully never need to use it. But of course it's going to be there if I do need it. So that's it. Over the course of 3 videos, we've had the story of 3 different gearboxes. One was killed and autopsied. This one's been refreshed, and the other one, of course, has been fully rebuilt and installed in the vehicle. And that one is really going strong. So I think it was a day or so after I did the initial road test, I set off to my mum's, and that was put at least 300 odd miles on it. So I've done about 500 miles on that gearbox now, and it's really nice. it's so gratifying to be able to change gear without crunching at last. And having autopsied the one that was in there, I'm still amazed it worked at all with no springs in the synchro. By rights, that should have broken up, but got away with it for a while. And I've learnt a lot about gearboxes, so it's one of the remaining bits of the vehicle has now been demystified in my head, and that's brilliant because the whole idea of Project Kermit was to build a vehicle, to have a vehicle as a daily driver that I understood completely, which is why I went back nearly 50 years to find something that was simple enough that I could potentially wrap my head around. And I'm getting there. I think it's just the engine internals left, and I'll have the whole thing sussed out in my head. We'll still continue on Kermit, but back to the enhancements rather than repairs. I've got a whole raft of ideas that I want to do to it, including a camper conversion, some kind of camper conversion. So join me for those. Cheers for now.